All right, so we're going to add the little staple to the little 4-part series, which I'm going to be putting this in its separate folder. I'm going to have a folder for these 4 videos. It's going to be called Vegan Propaganda. Okay? This information is what I want to have out as far as me seeing the holes in things. See, I've watched enough debates for me to want to point out the holes in all these things. Okay? And it's not ego, but I see everything. Okay? And I see everything because I'm not really seeing anything at the same time. I'm not attached to the whatever I'm seeing in physical form. Okay, and this can go into many layers, and that'll be a topic for another discussion. I'm talking about what you're deeply emotionally involved with. Family members, material objects, whatever it may be. It'll be a topic for another discussion. A wise man, right, says he knows what he doesn't know, right? Or knows that he knows nothing. I forgot how that saying goes. However, I could tell you I know everything, right? Because I know nothing at the same time. I'll leave that for you to ponder on, though. Because you all have these abilities as well. But I know everything. Yet you'll look at me and say, I am extremely egotistical for saying that. But that is also on you. Okay? I've had people tell me, since I made these videos, that I could bring a lot of heat onto myself for speaking on this topic of veganism. And it's like, well, it's funny how I started all these videos off and correlated veganism with religion. See, back in the day, they would crucify people who went up against the religious system, right? And we listened to high priests, and now we listen to science, and this is the new religion, right? Is these scientific beliefs and these scientific studies and whatnot. See, bringing the heat onto myself is this. Look, there's times where I may drink out of a Batman cup for the Bruce Wayne or Batman energy. I may drink out of a Groot cup. For this particular situation, if you don't know who this character is, look him up. Okay, this is Deadpool. All right, check out what his powers are. What's the significance of this character? What is the purpose? What does he do? You know what I'm saying? And then you can actually see why this is the reason why I'm drinking out of this particular cup. Okay? And I'll tell you one of the main things about Deadpool is he breaks the 4th wall. So you might as well call me a disruptor. Because you see, the way I see these topics of veganism and versus carnivore, or it's no different than the way I see flat earth versus round earth. I care not for either side, yet I've made videos on it to point out the holes in things. Right? So I've made videos on that. Republicans versus Democrats. It's no different than you watching 2 sport teams or 2 fighters go up against each other. It doesn't matter if blue team wins or red team wins. It doesn't matter. The real winners are the promoters and the owners of the organization, right? So you're the one there being entertained rather than these things entertaining you. When you're watching these things, right, you are paying most likely to watch these things. The organization makes a lot of money. The players get paid very, very well because they're needed, right? They're needed. But the whole thing is, the biggest currency here is your interest. So you're paying, but you're paying with interest as well. And the emotion and energy, plus the attachment you have toward the team that you're polarized to, is what's really the valuable harvest here. Not the fucking money, right? The money is just that you see, we say that we tax things and whatnot. The real interest is this currency. This is the biggest currency on the planet, is your attention. You pay your attention to something, and energy flows where attention goes, right? So the more you're polarized to either veganism, carnivore, flat earth, round earth, doesn't matter. You just keep the matrix going because you're basically entertaining duality. That's the whole thing. So when I watched these debates, I basically got a little bit tired of watching the same exact discussions on surface level shit. So I have this channel, right? And I will put out my information And I will put this all out into the ethers to let everybody know that there's a realm of possibility in this mental realm of infinite possibilities. However, it may not seem like that to somebody who's extremely left-brained, right? Or not open to the possibilities of anything else. And that's why it'll be hard for them to understand or understand this type of shit. So in that instance, I mean, there's going to be people who get what I'm saying, and there's going to be people who don't get what I'm saying. Because sometimes what I may be putting out is things you may have never even heard before. But the reason why is because I'm not going to be regurgitating information that people say. When I'm listening to these debates, see, I watch these debates, right? And I'm going to tell you how I actually get the information that I get, okay? When I watch debates or any people who are making discussions online and whatnot, what I'm doing is that I am listening to both sides, but I'm very present with both sides of the spectrum. So both sides are presenting PowerPoints. They're presenting things that they're going to be countering depending on what the person puts out and whatnot. So check this part out. When I'm watching it like a coach. Let's say there's two fighters in the octagon and I'm a coach, right? And I'm watching the fight, but I can see what the holes are or what the person could be doing based on what I'm seeing the opponent is doing, right? However, I'm not watching it and being a coach to one side. I'm literally being the coach to both sides. Okay? So I'm seeing the holes in things. So the fighters may not be seeing it only because either they're in fight or flight, so they're not thinking properly. So you got me to watch it to basically point out the holes in things, right? Now, the whole thing here is that the fighters have, based on their training, have something called muscle memory. So they got these PowerPoints, they got their presentations presenting, depending on what the person comes out with, they already got a counter prepared for that because it's been so repetitive over time that, and every time they debate, they get better and better because whoever, let's say if there's a opponent who's came out with a good point, they now have a time to prepare for a future debate in case that ever comes up again. It's kind of like muscle memory, right? But just like MMA, right? Fighters and the UFC or whatnot, everything evolves through time, right? So fighters have to evolve, and you can see basically, let's say old fighters versus new fighters now. The greats at one point, old fighters who were at the top of the organization at one point wouldn't even survive in today's time because the fighters have evolved so much that these fighters who were once great would never survive in today's time. So right now, even when people debate and whatnot, you better start evolving with the times because I'm just hearing the same surface level shit. You get what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, it's not going to just be depending on PowerPoints and whatnot. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of common sense to put both sides and integrate them together to show you that you're both talking about the same fucking shit. Okay? So, again, this is not coming from ego. Everybody has the ability to do this shit. Everybody. However, when I'm watching these debates, I'm watching them. I'm present with both sides, but I'm also in a sort of a meditative state. And I'm processing this information, but this is not taking time. This is not like, because this is not a physical thing. It's not like you're eating food, your body, takes energy, it processes it, extracts the nutrients, and then expels the waste. No, it's not like that. You know what I'm saying? That takes time. Everything that I'm talking about, when I'm telling you I'm in a meditative state and I'm open-minded and I'm present with both sides of the spectrum, this is all happening simultaneously. See, this is not a physical thing. This is all happening all at once. Okay? So now I'm processing all this, and then I see the holes in things. I'm integrating to some extent both sides, but upon this processing, right, it starts to connect dots to the things that I've already either caught on from previous debates or previous information that may not even have anything to do with this topic. It may just be from a different science. I may have already processed information on quantum mechanics, quantum science. I may have gone into the and even from the quantum world, I tied all that bacterial and viral world, and let's say how we perceive reality as far as round earth. I may have listened to a bunch of other things, and just things that have nothing to do with the conversation of veganism and carnivorism. Just the fact that I've already gathered some information from there, I'm starting to connect dots with things here, because everything is fucking connected, which is crazy. So this is where you come out the box, think outside the box, and you look at the broad spectrum of things. It's no different than religion. Religion, you got so many different religions, but when you look at the whole fucking scope of things, they're all talking about the same shit. And this is how you become a true religious person. A religious person ain't a person who's polarized to one religion. A religious person is somebody who's into all religions. And then what does religion mean to you? Is it the binding and limiting and imprisonment type of religion? Or is it the religion where you have discipline and structure, but it's you make your own religion to benefit you, right? Like a organization where it's running like a well-oiled machine, right? But you're still malleable, and because you're all things, you can dwell into all things. Because you're nothing, so you're molding to anything you want. So check this out, right? And this is why I say, look, for example, if you're a vegan, right? You're very limited to what you could do when you go out with a group of people, right? But then again, you would have to have the same type of people that are into this shit for you to be able to do this, right? And it's not to say that it's hard or not, you know what I'm saying? But it just takes discipline. And that's why I say I admire the practice. It's a beautiful practice, right? Now, when I go to hang in New York, I've got all kinds of friends. I got some friends who are vegans, some friends who are not. And I remember 2 of us were not vegan, but the other 3 were. And we said, well, let's go to a vegan restaurant. It doesn't matter. We went to a vegan restaurant and we all ate vegan food. No problem. No harm, no foul. But they absolutely cannot eat anywhere where we want to eat if they didn't offer vegan options. You know what I'm saying? Now, they got their beliefs and whatnot, and we respect it. That's the whole thing. But to a vegan, it's against animal rights, and they will fight tooth and nail to make their point. I don't have friends like that. My friends actually know I'm not vegan, and my other friend wasn't vegan, but we just ate at their vegan restaurant. But we never bring up this topic. There's some vegans who are not all about that. They're just vegans, no different than if I'm, let's say, into a religion, because I in New York you got all different kinds of people, right? So I grew up Catholic. And I was friends with people who are a completely different religion. And we actually hung out. But the topic of religion never came up. We just started doing fucking things. Playing sports. Fucking, going out to watch ball games or whatnot. Whatever it may be. But that wasn't a thing. It wasn't a topic. That didn't make us separate. Because he practiced his religion behind closed doors. And I practiced mine behind closed doors. So he did what he had to do. I did what I had to do. But the topic never came up to the point where, it's me versus you. Right? So there's people who say, well, a vegan and a carnivore are always against each other. But again, when we look at the word against, they're leaning on each other, against each other, like you lean on my shoulder to actually support this matrix that we are in. Because if one just said, fuck it, I don't give a shit, the whole thing would just fall apart. Or if one just gave in to the polar opposite end based on being convinced and they didn't stand their ground, they would still fall apart. There'd be 2 ways it would fall apart. It would fall apart either by submission, right, where there'd be only one way, or if the other person just didn't give a fuck, like genuinely gave a fuck, like they gave up their position but didn't also polarize to their end, they're just basically just stayed neutral, then it would still fall apart because it takes 2 to fight. It takes 2 for it to be a verse. And a verse is a frequency. And the whole thing is, for you to dance with somebody, it takes 2, but you would have to be a frequency match to that. That's why they say me versus you or you versus you. But you versus you would be that you are actually the only one But you're going to have your experience totally different than what you ever once imagined it to ever be. You know? So when we got, it doesn't really matter. Two sports teams, the organization and the promoters are the ones that win. Right? Now, I watch UFC. I watch UFC. But when I watch UFC, I'm watching it from a different lens. No different than if I'm watching, and I'm watching it for fun. But if I watch a movie, I am immersed into the experience. I want to experience the movie, right? But I'm not watching it the same way I once watched it. That's the whole thing. As I'm watching it, for some reason, I can't help but to decode certain things in the movie. And it's just happening automatically. Like, I was watching a picture of Our Lady of Guadalupe. I was talking to Junie, and I never saw this information anywhere. But my mom's birthday is on December 12th, right? And this is the same day as Our Lady of Guadalupe. And the whole thing is, she has a picture of her in her house. However, I've always gone to her house. It's just upon this one time I just glanced at it, and it just looked like a vagina, right? It looked like a vagina, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I thought I was bugging, but it's kind of like this. You don't just like look at something. Like, sometimes I may look at a tree and it just looks like a tree. But when you take a very close look at it, or just a different look at it, you can start to see the faces in that. Let's say the faces on the clouds. I made the example when I was watching the movie Trolls, where the grandpa was telling the little girl to look at the faces on the mountains that once walked the earth, and she said, "I don't see nothing but mountains." And he said, "No, look at it from your look at it from your heart." And upon taking that second look, she started to see all the faces on these mountains, right? So I basically was looking at it in a glance, but I was not looking at it from these physical eyes. It's just that it happened to look exactly like a vagina. You get what I'm saying? So then I went into compare a picture of an actual vagina to the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And it's insane how every single point of this image is exactly how it looks like in a vagina. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this video particularly on my Patreon, because I can't post, obviously, or it'd be risky to post a picture of a vagina on my channel. You get what I'm saying? And make certain points about this image. But I'll put that in a video on Patreon, and when I do, I'll let you know. And if you want the link to my Patreon, it's in the about section of this channel. Okay? But yeah, so this topic again of veganism, if anybody wants me to speak on it, I will. If anybody has questions on it, I will cover it in a future video. However, I particularly have covered my points, and I'm going to tell you right now, there's much more arsenal that I can add, but I'm just not going to do that. You get what I'm saying? I'm not going to do that unless I absolutely have to. But this is basically about half of the things that I can talk about when I speak on the topic of veganism versus carnivorism or whatever it may be. But if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. You can hit me up on Instagram, where I've gotten a few questions on. You know, my Instagram is The Zigzag Effect. And that's about it. If anybody has any questions, leave them in the comments. Like if you like this video, and we'll talk soon.